Hello, hello.
Welcome.
Letting everyone love seeing the faces and the pictures and the names pop in. Hello, everyone. Happy to have you all here. Hi, Peggy. Nice to see you. So today is Friday, February 3rd, and we are here for our monthly momentum planning webinar. We will be kind of going through it, leveraging our Momentum app. But really what these webinars that we'll be doing towards the beginning of each month is really to help us reset for the month and figure out how do we plan against where we are in space and time. So before we dive into anything, I'm going to hand it over to Oshi to kind of set us up in terms of where we are and how we'll be running things today.
Yeah, well, hello. I see a couple of familiar faces and a couple of new faces, so welcome. Thanks for being here. Just a couple of housekeeping, sort of how we operate here. The best way, if you have questions, if it's like a simple, how do I do this thing question, like here in Zoom, feel free to throw that in the chat. And then if it's more of a, how do I use Momentum? Can you go into this? Can you go over this? It's easier for Megan to see that you have a question if you use the raise hand feature. So if you go down to the bottom of the video, there's all of us here in the Brady Bunch style, and then you go down to reactions, there should be a raise hand function in there, and you can just click that and you can see that my hand's been raised real easy. And then you can easily lower your hand by clicking lower hand. Super easy way to make sure that your questions are answered and that we actually see you. Feel free to put things in the chat, say hi to each other, share your ideas, share your resources. I will be dropping other things in the chat, maybe some worksheets, maybe some other blog posts or resources. All kinds of things can happen today. There will be a recording. We are currently recording. And so if you have to hop off for any reason at any point, know that we've got this all captured. And if you want to revisit it, it'll be on the Hello Momentum website later on, as well as our YouTube. And you are definitely welcome to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified as soon as we upload any of our webinars or how-to videos, because those happen too. I think that covers everything. So without further ado, Megan, let's take it away.
Yes, and Barbara, I see your question in chat, and definitely can get to those. So as I was sharing before Oshi did her wonderful introduction of how we're going to be running things today, we're here in February. So today we're really going to be talking about how do we think about our planning ahead for the month of February, and recognizing that maybe some of the plans that we started out with on January 1st, as we've kind of gone into and had a few weeks into the new year, might need a little bit of rethinking or refreshing. We usually have a better sense at this point in time as to what we'll be able to accomplish than we might have done when we did our planning at the beginning of the year. So I like to think of January as kind of my trial run for the year. I definitely last weekend went back in and was relooking at the projects that I had started to set up for myself at the beginning of the year, and I did a bit of a reset and a refinement, and really kind of looked through what needed to do. I was talking with Oshi and Mary Claire before we started today about Groundhog's Day. We often think about, which was if you're in the US, was yesterday. And often we think about the movie that starred Bill Murray. That's all about things kind of just happening over and over and over again. So we can use that as a structure, right? For, do we want to repeat the past? Do we want to continue to repeat what January was, or do we want to kind of reset? But I was also thinking about, how we do it in the US is Puxadani Phil, a groundhog. Basically, if he comes out of his, hiding, and depending on if he sees a shadow or he doesn't see a shadow, and I can never remember what means what, we're either going to have 6 more weeks of winter, or we're going to have an early spring. And while unfortunately he said that we will have 6 more weeks of winter here in the US, I look at it as an opportunity to kind of take a look out and see how do I want to kind of plan ahead. So that's, instead of that repeating, another way to look at Groundhog's Day is that space and time to kind of reset. I'm curious because we usually have a mixture of folks, and I recognize some of your faces and names here, but just so that I can get a better sense in chat, if you could share how familiar you are with Momentum. How I'm going to do this today is, are you currently using the app? And I'm curious if you are, or are you more familiar with maybe our Momentum planning method that also is on PDF version? So how familiar you are with our planning methodology, and maybe how familiar you are with the app itself. Thank you, Oshi. Great. Angel, yes, there is a way to connect Momentum to Google Calendar. I can go through that today as well. Excellent. Good to hear, Peggy. All right. All right. So everyone there's some familiarity depending on. So that helps me in terms of answering questions. And some might be specific to how does the actual app itself function. And then some might be just kind of thinking about how the methodology happens. So first things first, let me share my screen. And so once I start sharing my screen, I will be less able to probably keep track of chat. So I'm going to ask Oshi to help me there. So I'm starting here on our hellomomentum.app. You're going to see this look a little bit different come next week. We are actually in the process of doing some updates. And one of those updates is actually, if you have, you may have gotten an email from Charlie yesterday or the day before, letting you know that we are actually going to have to take the app itself down over the weekend so we can do some of these updates. So the updates are both for the site and for the app itself as well. The updates are going to be, it's a transition to a integration with something called Outseta. And this is going to help with smoother signups. It's going to help with creation of your profile, where you're going to be able to do more things for, your subscription within the app. It's going to be a new email system we're using that allows us to do more integrated and personalized emails. And one of the things that will be here is this resources tab up here is going to have what we're going to call a knowledge base. And the knowledge base is going to be more of that kind of help desk pieces that are around how to use features and functions of the app itself. We're also going to have in that drop down under features will be where you can find these recordings and notes from all of these recordings moving forward. So if you ever want to come back and rewatch one from a past month, you'll be able to do that. So, but what I also wanted to point out is we have, if you ever are like, what is my login? How do I find the app? You can always go to our website and click login, and it will take you right to, and it's app.hellomomentum.app. All right, so let me sign in. And of course, I forgot to port over my password. So give me one quick second. Usually I have this up so I can cut and paste because I use a training account for these webinars, and I forgot to do that. So here we go. All right, so now we are in the app. The app is automatically designed to take you to your current week. We do this because the week tends to be the Goldilocks view. It's big enough so you can get kind of a sense of what's going on over the course of a week is a good amount of time to wrap our arms around, as opposed to the day where sometimes we can get caught up in the day-to-day and lose track of that bigger picture. So the week really helps us figure out where we are from a month and where we are in the week, and then how we might take our week forward. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take us to the quarterly view. And so before I actually start, Barbara, your original question, because this was around the yearly quarterly, was this the how to connect quarterly projects with your yearly projects? So I think what's going on is I'm going to do a test quarterly project. So in the quarter, I'm in the quarter planner now, because I'll see that because it says quarter one. I'll do a test quarterly project. And then I'll link it to one of my yearly, and then save. So were you trying to do this? So now you can see that it is linked to one of my yearly goals. Were you having issues in the quarterly planner, or were you having issues in the yearly?
It was actually I guess it was the month, because when I went over to month and added something to the month and wanted to track it back to my quarterly, or so if I type in a test there and I want to link it to a quarter project, but it wasn't, the drop down isn't appearing for a quarter project.
So here, or in, like, if I went to February and add project.
Where you were previously, I believe. I have to go exit
Okay.
my full screen to find mine.
Okay. When you
so I
figure
have
out-
quarter major events, and yes, I have, like, on the right hand side I have January, February, so I was adding on the right hand under, say, February.
Okay.
And wanted to link it to the quarter project for that month, from that month over on the right over to the other side.
Right. So it seems, so I'm wondering if it's a local instance for you, because mine is allowing me to pull from my quarterly projects. So it will only, though, pull from the next level up. So if we're in the month, it will you'll have to have quarter size projects, and you'll link it to those.
That's what I wanted to do. It wasn't working.
Okay.
And I don't
So
know.
let's we can get you set up then with support afterwards, because it might be a local issue based off of the system that you're using.
Sure. And then I could send them, I could do a Loom video for them to use, so they could see what's happening, maybe.
That would be great. Okay. I just wanted to connect on that, because it was in this quarterly area that you had that question. So I've pulled up the quarterly so that I can start to think about, it's good to think about, what am I trying to do for the quarter as I start to plan out my months. So what I did prior to this was I took some examples from my own life in terms of what projects I'm pushing forward over the quarter, over the year. And then I started filling out for the month of February. So now when I go into the month of February, I can now start to plot out, how do I want February to look? So few things always are on each and every of our planner screens in Momentum, and this holds true to our PDFs as well, is you always see 3 time horizons. So we're on the month of February. You see this month's projects, and you'll see that Momentum has let me know that I have four projects, which is great, because now I know if it gets above 5, I can start to say I'm probably carrying too many projects along with me. It also shows me the quarter size projects and why we go up. So go, what we're doing this month, and we look at what we're trying to do in the quarter, is it helps us show the reasoning, the purpose, the why. Why am I doing these monthly projects? Because they relate to these bigger quarter size goals that I have. So I just wanted to, so I had put in my updated quarterly projects here. When you go to the month, and you have not yet done this, it's going to ask you to confirm your quarterly projects. The reason for this is nothing to do with anything other than it helps us set in our minds, makes us relook at what did I say that I'm committing to over the course of the quarter, and going, yes, this is what I can actually do over the quarter. Sometimes if we add in too many things or we relook at them, we might see, ooh, this is too many things, or maybe I didn't account for instance, if you have a chronic illness, that's going to be a project that you'll always want to account for so you don't overextend yourself. So in this case, these 4 quarter size projects feel good and doable for me. So I'm just going to hit confirm. And then that way, now I know this is what I'm setting my commitments to. When we go into the weeks, we'll see the same thing happen for the month size projects that we've put in. So now that I have my quarter size confirmed, when I did my quarterly planning, I looked at, here are the month size projects for February that correlate to those quarter size projects. And again, going to look to see if there's anything else that might get added to or need to be updated. In my case, these projects also feel good, but if I wanted to add a project, I would click add project. And in the monthly view, you have 3 options. You can add it as a project, but you can also set it as either a milestone or a benchmark. A milestone being kind of a point in the road all along the journey to a higher goal, right? So if there's something that you want to notify for February as this is me seeing me at this point is a key milestone to getting to a further point, you would check milestone. Benchmarks are more of if there is some sort of more quantifiable thing that you want to track. So say you were for the month or for the quarter, you wanted to read 10 books. And so maybe you would create a benchmark so that in February, you want to read 3 out of the 10 books that you had set aside. So those are what those things are. Monthly project, really, it's as easy as putting in the project. And here at Productive Flourishing and for Momentum, anything in Momentum Planning, when you're putting a project, we always like to make it actionable because the action is going to help us identify, remind us what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it. Actions can also help us see the size of projects. Publishing a book, probably going to be a year-size project. Editing or writing certain chapters, maybe writing the book proposal, those might be quarterly or monthly size projects. So different verbs often indicate different levels of where they might go in your app or in the planner. So I'd always, create, build, write, decide. These are all kind of actions. And then usually the noun will follow through no matter where in the time horizon you are. So if you notice that for the quarter, I have prep for the pre-launch activities around Team Habits, which is Charlie's book that's coming out this August. So in February, what I'm doing for that is building out the project plan for the Team Habits work. So Team Habits being kind of the set feature and the verbs being different based off of where we are in space and time. And then as we just went through, you can always link it to a quarterly project. So you would link to one of the projects that you have already preset up here in your quarter. So for me, say I wanted to have it be delivering against Q1 team objectives, I would start typing that in or use the down arrow button and select that. The color functionality is always an interesting question that we get in terms of how do I use these colors in Momentum? And the answer is always however and if it works for you. So sometimes I usually like to use color. I did not in this instance just to keep it clean and simple, but sometimes I will set a color for a project. And no matter where I am in space and time, I will always use that same color designation for it. So say I had delivering against the Q1 team objectives, which is around leading the publishing team here at PF. Say I wanted that to be pink, I would just select that color and save. There's a lot of different ways to use the colors across the different planners. We actually do have a blog post for that. Going to some of our content is transferring to that new knowledge base though. So we will kind of provide guidance on that when we send the video, so we can make sure we're sending you the most recent link on some of the suggestions we have around using color. Next would be then looking over here. And so we have the month. We know why we're doing these month-sized projects. And now let's get over to the dashboard, which is the how we're going to do the projects. So it's always
Megan,
3 times. Yes.
Just a quick little thing. Would you mind hitting the print function on this so that you can show people what it looks like whenever you want to print, say, your quarterly
Yes.
page?
Yes, and the print function and at some on our roadmap is to have an actual little like printer icon here, but really it is just you can either choose
It should be
the
in
file
there.
in the upper nav, or I always used to like to use Command or Control P depending on if you're a Mac or PC, and it will load a preview. And so it kind of is similar to what our printed planners look like, where again it's the highest time perspective will be in the upper left. This month's projects here. If there's any, our additional notes have moved to down here for space. And then you always have over here on the right-hand side, your dashboard. And the dashboard is always, how am I accomplishing what I'm trying to do over the course of this month? So it's as simple as, Control P or going up to the file and going to print.
And you should be able to use that on any of our views, and it'll print usually both sides of the page that are full.
Yes.
There was another question. Let's see if I can pull up. Peggy's wondering if you can also demonstrate how to duplicate 1 month project to the next month.
Yep.
For instance, something that was in January, we want to duplicate to February.
Yep. So it's kind of a two-stepper, Peggy. So we go to the 3-dot menu, and you have a few options here. You can send this project to the next one, or you can duplicate it, and then you'll see it shows up here exactly as you have set it. And then you would send it over to March. And so now you have it still here in this month. And then if I were to go to the next month, it's now here in March. And then how this would be helpful, like I talked about that verb noun construct, it might be a different verb that you're doing in March than you might be doing in February. So then you might go into this and hit the edit function. And if you wanted to kind of change the verb, you could do that. The other way you can do this is if you were in the quarterly, you can use the drag and drop feature. So say I wanted to duplicate this refresh of the website. So now it's duplicated and I can use the handles here and drag it to February, or I could even drag it down to March. Yeah, when you move something to the next month, it will disappear. So if you duplicate it and then move the duplication over, you'll keep it in both months if that works for you.
The send to function is more of a deferral. It's if you want to defer something to the next month, you're like, oh, this isn't going to happen this month. Well, let's pull it over here.
Yeah.
And then obviously the duplicate is like, oh, we're doing this twice in a month. Let's put it over here too, in case that helps.
Yes, there's a lot of great features that we have here. So like Oshi just said, if something happens and all of a sudden, a deadline gets pushed back by a month and you need to now, creating the resources for the app now needs to happen in March, as opposed to February, I could just send this to March. I could also, or if for the month of February, this is my one priority, this is the priority. So you can only choose on any planner, one project to choose as priority. But when you do that, it adds this star here, and it also sets it so that you can't move anything else to the top of this list. Because what this list can do is you can use the drag and drop feature to, if you wanted to go, okay, this is my second, if you wanted to prioritize your projects visually for yourself, you can enter them however it works for you and then move them around. But if I were to try to move the test above priority, it won't let me. It'll automatically default to the second section. The other items we have here are, we went over duplicate. Editing we went over editing. It's just if you wanted to kind of change anything that's in here. And then you can also delete. Sometimes we create projects for ourselves. I had a few of these in January where I created some projects in January. And then when I went and relooked at the end of January, I realized, you know what, I'm going to let this one go. And, I kind of reset what my projects were. The last item in this dropdown I haven't gone through yet is the archive feature, which is my favorite feature, because this allows us to say there's sometimes where projects get pushed and we know the deadline is moving a month, so we might push it to the next month. But sometimes something gets just stuck and put on hold and we don't know when we're going to be able to come back to it, or sometimes we don't know when it's going to come back to us, but we don't want to lose all of the great work that we did around it. We don't want to lose anything that is connected to it. So I'm going to go to quarter actually, since I don't have children projects. So if I wanted to, I needed to archive the prep for pre-launch, let's just say. But I have things that are connected to this. You'll see over here, I have the building out the project plan is over here in February. I don't want to lose everything that I've already started to put in. So I can select the highest order of the project that I have in the app, go to archive, and the archive will pop up over here on the right. And if I decide to move it to archive, it disappears from my calendar, but it's always up here in this filing cabinet. And I can go to projects. And apparently I've archived a few as examples in the past, but this is the one that the prep for pre-launch activities around team habits. And if I click this little arrow button here, it's going to show me that when I move it, what also moves with it is anything that was connected to it, was linked to it. So I can unarchive this quarter size project and decide, you know what, I'm not going to do that this quarter. I'm going to do that next quarter. And then if I unarchive it, and I go to quarter 2, it's now in this quarter's projects, and the project that I had as a kind of a child project, a sub project of it at the monthly level, also carried along with it. And if I want to kind of put it back in my, I can do the same activity if I wanted to move it back to this quarter. Unarchive it, move it back to Q1, unarchive, and now it's disappeared from Q2. And it is back in Q1. Any other questions before I was going to go into kind of how to approach the weekly planning? But I see a lot of chat has been going on, so I want to make sure we're addressing any questions that you guys might have. Anything I've missed, Oshi? I know there's been a lot of,
Is anything that you missed so much as would you mind just going back over some of the function or things from different sections? Barbara was mentioning that she tried to move a task in a week to just another day of the week. And
Mhm.
if you click the menu, it only allows you to move it to the next instance. But you could also use that drag and drop
Yeah.
function to move it all the way, or like you explained just a moment ago, the archive function to
Yeah.
pull it up
Yeah.
to a whole nother day if that's what you'd like.
Yeah, I would definitely like, so on the up to the weekly planner, the drag and drop is always going to be an option. So say I'm in art this week and I put something Tuesday project. And I could hit the 3 buttons and send it to Wednesday. But if I wanted to maybe send this to Friday, I would click on the 3 handles here. And if I wanted to move it to Friday, I could just drag it and drop it there. So this dashboard view on most of the planners is going to be the easiest for like moving things around. One of the things that I would is really helping me as I continue to use the app is living out of the weekly planner. And then using the daily is more of kind of that more traditional checking of the boxes of the to-dos. So I actually have started not putting any tasks on my daily planners. And what I do is at the start of every day is when I go, okay, what did I say I was going to do today? And then I will put in any tasks for the week, or what did I think I was going to do for the week, and put in any tasks that might occur to me. So I'm just going to put a task A, task B example. And I might just do my laundry list at the start of, I like to plan on Sundays. But so when I'm doing my planning for the week on my Monday, I might put all of my tasks here. But then as the week goes by, I might go, oh, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do task A until later in the week. So I'm going to move it to Tuesday. And then when I go to Tuesday and I find, nope, task A, I'm not going to get to it today, I might move it to Wednesday. But that way I'm just keeping one task list and not worrying about, oh, am I going to do this on Wednesday or Thursday or Tuesday or Friday? I think a lot of times when we get into that, that aspect, it can get a little overwhelming and gets us into the pattern of living out of our to-do list on days versus kind of really thinking through what we're trying to accomplish. So for me, setting my week is enough once I start to fill out what my intentions are for the week is enough to get me going. So I could look at this every day and go, okay, the kind of the main things I wanted to accomplish, as opposed to the minutia of the 15-minute tasks or the 2-hour chunks of work. If that's helpful to anyone. Any other questions? I do love, thank you, Barbara, for bringing up the kind of the drag and the drop, because that is always that. A lot of what Momentum helps us do is the sequencing. So it's less about, like I said, that kind of long vertical to-do list, and it starts to help us kind of tip that on its side and help us to see when we can do things or what things can be done together.
Thanks, Megan. I have one more question that I'm also curious about this. I've been noticing a few people having issues with the calendar sync, the Google Calendar sync up in there.
Yep.
I guess sometimes it works really well and sometimes it works way too well, where there are like multiple of the things that you put in there. Do you think that the update over the weekend is going to help with this, or do you know of a fix that we can use to sort of uncomplicate that? It's okay if the answer is no.
I don't know that I don't think the updates over the weekend is going to fix that. But what I can do is maybe kind of better show kind of what the connection point is. And I think I remember somebody also had a question about the calendar sync. So at this time, we have the calendar sync just for Google Calendar. We're working on Outlook and Apple Cal, but kind of we're trying to get the biggest amount of users, which tended to be on Gmail, set up and get all the kinks out so that we can make sure that we get the sync right for everybody. So to create the calendar sync, that is going to be up here. You click on either your picture, if you have a picture here, or your initials, and you go into settings. When you go into profile, you will see a few things here, but right here, the last option is to sync calendar, your Google Calendar. Now, I already have it set up to our email system. So it's as simple as hitting connect, following the instructions, the prompts that Google asks you to do to give permissions. And then when you go over to your calendar, of course, it's going to make me reload. Let's see. All right. This is why I had it all set up early, guys, so that I wouldn't have to do this while we were on the call, but this is what happens sometimes. Give me 1 second to find the correct. Actually, double checking I am using the right email. Support. Oh, that's why. I was trying to connect to the wrong one. There we go.
And a reminder for everyone who's here, if you do have a question, you can put it in the chat, but you can also raise your hand. You can use the raise hand function in the reaction section. And we are happy to listen to your questions and answer them in real time, rather than you guys having to go back and through the chat.
All right, thank you, Oshi. All right, so now I'm in the Google Calendar connected to, and you'll see that already I have a kind of a test scheduled event here. So here's what you're going to see once you get into your Google Calendar. When you connect it, it creates a new calendar called Momentum. So in my instance, my regular calendar is in blue and my Momentum calendar is in this pink. So one of the things that when you are first setting up your calendar is you'll have to connect the two so that we can port in any events that you might already have on your Google Calendar into Momentum. When we put something on our Google Calendar, it does not automatically go to the Momentum. So there is an extra step sometimes that we need to take. So if you click on this test scheduled event for today, you'll see that right now it's not showing up in pink. So it's not on my Momentum calendar. But if I click on it and I go to these 3 dots for options, I can also copy it to Momentum. Save. And so now you'll see on my Google Calendar, it is on both my regular calendar and my Momentum calendar. And you can always unclick this box in your Google Calendar if it's just annoying to see 2 instances always. But at the current moment in time, in order to sync your Google Calendar with Momentum, it has to have its own instance here. Now, if we go back to the app, we'll see that on February 3rd, which is today. Oh, you know what? I think it was because it was an old instance. Let me try this again. Apologies. So test event. That's why I said we need to do that extra step of connecting them, which Steve, who will be facilitating our next webinar on the 17th, does a way better job of explaining the connectivity to Google Calendar. But now that it's a new event I've just created, again, I will copy it to Momentum. It's now showing on both, and it should port over. I'm going to hit refresh. And it did not. So I apologize. There's something here that in the setup that it is probably user error on my part. But in theory, it should show up on your schedule for the day. I am not quite sure what is in the back end going on that's not allowing that. But we'll do we'll try to get this sorted and get a Loom out to everyone so we can show kind of the steps better. So apologies for having some
And
user
this is why
error
we
on
ask
my part.
questions, though.
This is why we ask questions. And also
Thank you
sometimes
for the
it-
question, y'all, with the Google
Yes.
Calendar. It can get complicated, and as you have questions or if something comes up, if there's a bug, please email support and I will do my best to either talk to the development team or we can work out a solution together if this ever becomes an issue for you.
Yeah. And like I said, Steve is going to be leading our getting started webinars, which are in the middle of the month. And he is kind of the technical wizard around all things momentum. So for these types of questions, I will make sure that in the next webinar, he covers the GCal sync up to make sure that you guys get the best direction on how to do that. All right, Oshi, any other questions that I can redeem myself on?
Megan, can I ask you just a quick question? Can you go back to, you know how you said you work off of the weekly page? And
Yes.
So when you're there, so you put all your to-dos on that, you list, you know how you listed them out. How do they automatically move to the right onto the
No,
weekly
so
page? You move them.
Megan, I have a
you
great
physically do
example of this.
yes.
My momentum is filled out a
Do you want me
lot.
to-
Do you want me to share my screen?
If you are willing to do that, I would love that. Yeah, that way, because I would have to do some example projects to show. But while Oshi is pulling that up, Alexander, so the weekly planner, when you see the weekly dashboard and each of the days, what we're filling in are project chunks for the day, not the individual tasks for the day. So when you fill that dashboard out, it kind of will give you that bigger picture. What am I trying to accomplish on this day? When you go to the daily planner is when you can start to include the tasks. And so Oshi,
Okay.
over to you.
Yeah. So like Megan said, it's more about the project chunks that I'm putting in here. There's probably multiple steps that go into each thing that gets checked off. And the way that I keep track of that is actually I use another app. I use Asana to help me keep track of like the little things and to put all of the resources in there and stuff like that, so that my step-by-step is all right there. But then at a glance, I can see in my weekly dashboard that I want to get these certain things done. So I will share my screen now. And you guys can
And-
see this little dashboard here.
And so I just need to also point out, you'll notice that Oshi is using our sparkly version. There are 3 different color themes that you can choose. I was in our automatic corporate blue, but we have 2 other color options. So Oshi has chosen our sparkly edition.
Obviously, it's the best one. So you can see here, it's Friday now, so I've gotten a lot of this stuff done, but a lot of these things that I checked off were just what was checked off for the week. Earlier today, I moved a bunch of these items from Wednesday and Thursday that didn't get checked off. So for instance, like this one was up here on Wednesday. I can either hit the send to Thursday if I know that it's not completed or it's not gonna get completed, or I'm gonna be like, oh man, I have so much going on Thursday, I'm not gonna get to that till Friday. So I just drag it down. And so like this one, webinar, doing that right now, checked off. There were a lot of other things that went into doing the webinar. So that was just sort of a chunk of things to do. If I wanted to get really specific, I could go to the today view and add that task the task would be like
Per
Grab
webinar.
the docs.
Yep.
And then the project chunk that I would add to that would be the webinar. And once I've saved that, I can go back to the week. And this webinar chunk, say I were to like archive it. Now I have this webinar and all of the things that I know are going to have to happen on the day of attached to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
Got
what
it.
I
Like I
would,
said, I tend to just use the weekly dashboard. You can see even like, I don't have any monthly stuff in here. I don't have my schedule in here. That's what works for me. May or may not work
Yeah.
for you. Maybe you have more level of detail that you need to see. I don't.
so for how I was suggesting for that too, is that I kind of do that level at the weekly. I can either use Asana, like Oshi mentioned, like a task management tool, or I will in my Monday planner, just kind of sometimes even brainstorm out all of the disparate tasks associated that I might have to do. And then that way I can kind of go for the week, here are kind of all the little chunks and tasks that I have. And then as they get done, I check them off. As I need to move them, I just kind of move them. Sometimes one of the things that came up in our last webinar is, how do I find the things I didn't do? And we found that it was a lot of like the task at the task level. So this helps me kind of, if I just put all of my tasks on Monday, even if I'm not planning to do all of them on Monday, it helps me keep them all together throughout the week. So that was kind of how I hacked the system so that I could keep kind of things moving. You could also put tasks where they belong on each day, but remember to go back, and anything that you didn't check off as done, move it so it doesn't get lost in as an undone. And it's like, what day did I think I was going to do that on? Is that helpful, Alexander?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions about either the app itself, or just kind of thinking about, again, kind of going back to this being February in terms of how to kind of think about the planning for the month ahead?
Megan, can I ask you one more question?
Sure, you can ask
Um,
as many questions as we have
So,
time for.
so if I put, I logged in my quarterly project. So, like just for an example, I did one, and
Mhm.
then I did a bunch of milestones for that
Mhm.
quarterly project, and the milestones showed up on like,
The first day.
yes, exactly.
Yes.
And is
Yeah.
that correct? Can you move that around, or like?
You should be able to move them. I actually noticed this as I was doing my quarterly plan, because the benchmarks and milestones feature we just kind of added in towards the tail end of last year. So it was my Q1 was my first time leveraging those as well. And I was like, actually, I think logically for me, it would be probably the end of the month, or choosing a day of the month. So that is something that we've flagged
Okay,
to our
got it.
development team to ask them to do it. Once something though ends up on a certain day, you should be able to move it.
To
My
move it,
trick for
yeah.
that though, so you don't have to like move it by month, is trying to think, let's do, you said you did it by quarter? Or did
Yeah, so I did like quarter 1, right? Like, yeah.
okay.
And then,
So, oh wait, we have to do it at
so that was like the
level.
quarterly project, yeah. And then I did a bunch of milestones for that project.
Okay. Milestone example. And I'll just put it as just to link it. So yes, so then when we go to February, and we went to weekly planner, it shows
Yeah,
up here.
it shows up there, yeah.
So I
That's
think,
exactly what.
yeah,
what
so
I
if you
did.
go up to edit, it's not letting you. I think what you could do though is so you would have to.
You could move it, yeah.
Yeah, or you could archive it go to archive. And when you go to unarchive, why is this not clicking? There we go. Unfortunately, it's only at the monthly view. So you could potentially move it to March. So it would be March 1st. So then
see.
on your calendar for the week of the 27th, it would show up on March 1st.
it.
That is something that we have flagged to Dev. So we'll start to kind of put that on so that the milestones can kind of be more logical in,
Cool.
when we're hitting them.
And then you linked it to your quarterly project, right?
Yes.
I had noticed that so I didn't do that, but I'll
Yeah.
I'll
I
do that,
love
yeah.
the linking is always great. And sometimes you have projects that don't link up, the quarter or the month is the highest level. But when they do link, that means that if you ever needed to move the project as a whole, you could go to the highest level of the project and everything ports over. So you
Great.
don't have to lose anything and then manually go, wait, okay, I'm changing this from quarter 1 to quarter 2, then going back to the months and then having to move those as well. Everything will move seamlessly.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Megan, I was able to do the calendar sync. So if you guys would like a little demonstration on how to do that, I got you. I
That's
figured
why
it out.
Oshi is our rock star. It is not letting, there we go, stop share. There we go.
Cool. It is relatively simple, but it is multiple steps. So you'll want to make sure that you do all the steps. I will share my screen. Here we are in Momentum. You're going to go to your little profile here, settings, and then it usually starts here. There was someone asking about whether or not we can change the starting day. You can change your week starting day right here. You can also change if you land on the weekly or on the daily or on the monthly, specifically whenever you log in, if that's something that you'd like to do. This is also where you change your theme. What we're going to do is connect the Google Calendar though. So I'm going to ask you to, it says disconnected usually if you're not connected. If you're having trouble connecting with your Google Calendar, I would highly suggest disconnecting it and then reconnecting it. That usually resets a lot of the problems. So that's what I did. I had to disconnect it and now I'm going to reconnect it. You sign in with Google. Allow all the permissions. It'll say Google connected equals true up at the top, which is how you know you were successful. What you're going to do now is go to your calendar, and you guys are going to see all my focus blocks. You should, in your My Calendar section, there's going to be one that says options for Momentum. You can change whatever color you'd like it to be. There's lots of colors. I'm going to choose purple because I like purple. Now, for any of these events that you have on your calendar, just like Megan said, you're going to want to click into it, copy it to your Momentum calendar, hit save, and then that'll be on your calendar. There are other things that you can always add to that, either retrospectively or for the future. So like this is a recurring event. I don't know if this will actually pull over in a recurring way, but let's check it out. Did I add that to the right one? Everything's purple. Yes, it is Momentum. So now I can go in here and you can see I didn't even have to hit refresh. It just pulled up this scheduled event, which is where we're at right now. Click that, all done. Now, if I want to go to next week, I should have my co-working, and look, it says it's a recurring event. So then every week on Tuesdays, I should see my scheduled weekly co-working event in there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yes. So the beauty of this, what Oshi just shared as well, is that if you have recurring events that are happening, you can create those on your Google Calendar and they will show up on Momentum. At this point, in moment in time, we don't have the kind of reverse side of that. So if you have recurring events, that's probably going to be the easiest way if it's in your Google Calendar and you've connected the event to the Momentum calendar. Also, it's going to have to connect to the email that your planner is attached to. So if your planner is attached to a Google email, that will be the calendar it will connect with. All right. Thank you for that,
Thanks, Matt. Let me
Oshi.
know if y'all have any questions on it. Again, I'm super available at support. Please let me know if there's anything that comes up after this.
Yeah. Oshi, if you wouldn't mind putting that support email in chat so everyone has it. I'm going to remind everyone that we will have an outage tomorrow and Sunday so that we can do this new integration to deliver better to you starting on Monday. On Monday, you'll also get an email letting you know you probably are going to have to change your password because we have changed systems on the back end. We're going to have you kind of reset your passwords, but your content and everything will stay in there. So unfortunately, you won't be able to use the app this weekend, but starting on Monday, it will be should be a smoother experience for everyone. And there's some new resources and knowledge base and things that you'll start to see on HelloMomentum.app, our website as well. So that takes us pretty much right to the hour. I want to thank you all for, as always, wonderful questions. Our next webinar is Friday, February 17th, same time, so 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, or whatever time in the world you might be at. Steve is going to be leading that. That is our Get Started series. So that one will be more about kind of that Ask Steve Anything on how the app functions, but really focusing in on how do you really get started with Momentum. So either Momentum Planning or the app. So thank you all. And if you have any questions, please do reach out to us at support. With that, I'm going to say goodbye.